Hello everyone, my name is Tom, otherwise known as Titanium Legman, and welcome back to another entry in the 3 Builds series of videos that I do very so much enjoy doing for Fire Emblem Engage. And this is another 3 Weird Builds episode for Maddening mode, because yes, I just recently finished my first run of Maddening on stream, wherein we did a bunch of guide content, a bunch of builds, a bunch of interesting stuff, and I'm still working on content from that run, like in-depth build guides on some of my favorite builds from that run, as well as, my review of Engage and its DLC and Maddening mode and the whole kit and caboodle, and my lore video about all of the emblems, and all of that stuff is still in the works. And yet, with everything that was going on and has been going on with my mother's health and being busy and kind of having a really weird, unpredictable schedule, I decided to start another run of Maddening just for my own enjoyment and to experiment with some more builds and put some different ideas that I've had to the test and just mess with stuff and try and chill a little bit. And as such, I've got 3 more builds here that I want to talk about that I've been enjoying, and I've been kind of theory crafting some stuff. So that's what we're going to do today. A lot more of that scripted content, more in-depth content to come, but right now I got to take my W's where I can get them, and I got to take my content where I can get it, because I've kind of been going crazy a little bit. So with that said, 3 characters that we're talking about today. We were talking about Lapis, Alfred, and Celine. And these are characters that I've been wanting to use on Maddening because I had tried to use them a little bit here and there, or in the case of Alfred and Celine, really just haven't used them for an entire run period in Engage. And before I write them off completely, I do want to experiment with them in different ways to try and figure out ways that I can make them work. Same thing with Lapis. I've tried to use her in hard and Maddening, and I have not been able to make it work. But I think I've got something this time around. So let's talk about what it is that we have going on here, shall we? We'll start with Lapis, and I'll be intercutting some actual gameplay footage here as well. That was a common point of feedback that I got from people, that you'd like to see some gameplay footage while we're discussing these builds, show them in action. We can do just that. So starting off with Lapis, I've been wanting to make Lapis work since I first recruited her on my first run of Engage in hard mode, because I just like her. I like her as a character, I like her writing, I like her design, her color scheme. As a sword fighter who joins, she's like your first real sword-wielding character other than Allier that you get. Celine can use swords, yes, but she's primarily a mage in the way you play her. So there's a lot going for Lapis, except for the fact that she immediately gets shown up by Diamant and then Kagetsu within a few short chapters, so she kind of gets overshadowed. She's that weak but fast Myrmidon archetype, and in Engage that doesn't really work that well, especially on Maddening, just because enemies are so tanky and accurate. And then when you have characters like Kagetsu who are basically just as fast, if not faster in most scenarios, or at least, if they've been equally leveled, it's really not a good look for Lapis. But I've been wanting to figure out how to make her work, and I think what we've got going here could do just that. So as you can see, we're looking at Wyvern Knight Lapis right now. My goal here was to take Lapis out of her sword fighter, sword master base class line and give her something that would synergize a bit more with her stats and with her personal skill. For her growths in Wyvern Knight, we have the following: an HP of 75, strength of 45, magic of 20, dex of 45, speed of 60, defense of 55, actually pretty solid, res of 35, luck of 30, and a build of 10. So by going into Wyvern Knight, we can still make good use of Lapis's naturally high speed, while supplementing her strength and her defense that otherwise could be a little bit lacking, and make a much more well-rounded character. And I like this because I feel like it does synergize quite well with her personal skill, Share Spoils. If there's an ally within one space, grants hit and avoid +10 at a cost of crit -10 to unit. So you have this situation where you kind of have like this sword fighter, sword master character who classically in Fire Emblem want to be built as crit machines, and that's something we see with Kagetsu. That's very much what you want to do with him. But her personal skill goes against that if you're not out there lone wolfing it. And the only reason to be out there lone wolfing it with Lapis to get just your normal baseline crit would be just to get that normal baseline crit, and you're losing out on a fairly nice +10 to hit and avoid. So instead what we're doing here is we're trying to build a frontline, kind of hold the line character, and or if we wind up building her into kind of a flying strike force, which is an idea that I do have going on with other flying characters, could actually be a pretty good blitzkrieg unit and get some nice boosts for her trouble. The idea here is there's nothing fancy going on. I just want a unit who can stand and kick ass. Of course, we have Air Raid as part of the Wyvern Knight's natural kit. If unit initiates combat from a space a foe cannot enter, grants speed +5 during combat. This is just nice, and as a flying unit, you can find your opportunities to make use of this. And then the two skills that I've given Lapis that I'm going to try and continue to upgrade over the course of the game, once I have access to the emblems again, is Sword Agility and Sword Power. Sword Agility is granting us a Void +20 at this level, at a cost of crit -10 when using a sword, so kind of leans into the whole we're not going to be critting with Lapis thing, which works for me. Her personal skill already does that. And then Sword Power grants attack +2 at this level, at a cost of a Void -10 when using a sword. So the idea here is that we're going to get extra Avoid from Sword Agility, which will offset the negatives of Sword Power, and we'll also then have Share Spoils to give us another Avoid boost. So we're going to have a tanky, high HP, but still dodgy and fast Wyvern Knight who can hit hard due to Wyvern's good strength, and should hopefully, as time goes by, build up enough build that she's not getting weighed down by her swords or lighter spears if we have them on her. And thus far, this has been working out quite well. We're still early on. Enemies have not quite hit the same power spike that they will in late game Maddening, but I predict this going well, more than my previous ventures into like Swordmaster Lapis and Paladin Lapis have gone. To go along with the flying Blitzkrieg Strike Force that I'm kind of tossing around the idea of using, I currently have Lucina on Lapis. I'm not using the Plague Doctor in this run, so no need to, reserve Lucina for him. And that, I do think, gives us some good options here. Lapis being able to get some effectiveness swords and a bow that gives boosted XP and can help her shoot down opposing flyers through Lucina's bond weapons will be very nice. Dual Strike being able to still be a backup unit that you're kind of used to Lapis being if you've used her in her base class, while being a Wyvern Knight and having that increased range and everything. That's awesome. That's been really helpful. It's been very nice to have her holding the front and assisting her allies while still being able to literally stand in the line if I need her to, or again as part of the strike force, will be very good. Then of course dual assist, being able to attack within our move range. As a Wyvern Knight, we've got higher move range. Cool, great. Bonded shield just gives us our 80% chance to block hits for normal allies, but has a 100% trigger rate for flying allies. And that's where I kind of have come up with this idea for the Flying Fortress build that Lapis would be the center of, have like a wing of flying units that could go in, cause havoc in the enemy line, get back out. Lapis can cover them. She's getting her own stat boosts and everything like that. Could be pretty solid. And then all for one, again, if you're going in there with a big group of flying allies, or you're standing in the actual line fighting off the enemy and you have a group of allies around you, with her good strength, all for one could actually deal some pretty solid damage. So of all of the things that I've tried for Lapis thus far, I do think that this is going to be one of her best options. And I mean, you've been seeing her in action. You can see her here. I like the armor, and I like the color scheme for her as well. So thematically, looks cool, and it's been functioning quite well. Highly recommend. We'll have to see how it has performed by the end of the run, but I like it thus far. Moving on to Alfred, this one this one is definitely a strange one, and this one actually comes to us from community member and commenter Drugon, who mentioned in one of my previous Maddening build videos that I had done a suggestion based off of their Alfred build that they were using when I was discussing trying to make Alfred work. And they said Thief Alfred has been one of their strongest units on hard mode, but still. And I never would have thought to do that. That's not something that ever would have been in my head to try. Like, of all the different ways that you could use Alfred, Thief was not one of the things I was thinking of, so I had to try it. And it turns out Thief Alfred's growths actually kind of hit what I really like to have in Maddening, which is 50s or higher in all of his stats, or nearly all of his stats across the board. So we're looking at 70 HP, 50 strength, 55 dex, 55 speed, 55 defense, 25 res, 55 luck, and 10 build. So for the vast majority of our stats, every other level, we are guaranteed to be getting a point in almost all of our stats. And at certain points, we'll actually have a little bit of overlap there, and it'll be even better than that. And that, to me, is awesome, because the number one issue that I've had with Alfred every time I've tried to use him is just I can't get his growths to keep up with the rest of the party. And while that's maybe thematically fitting for his characterization, as a combat unit in my party, gameplay mechanics are king in Fire Emblem. That's a problem. That has been a problem for me. So surprisingly enough, Thief has fixed a lot of that, and I kind of like the way it's been playing so far. You can see here I don't have any inherited skills on Alfred yet, just because I've been getting a feel for the build, if it's something that I'm even going to want to continue trying to use and invest in. And I have to figure out what it is that I want to go with for him if I do wind up sticking with it, but I could definitely see knife precision being something that I would do for increased dodge, or avoid and increased accuracy. Maybe strengthen so we can deal more damage with our knives, yeah, stuff like that. But even just on his own, as a thief, he's been doing surprisingly well. Right now I'm using Lyn on him just because I don't have very many emblems available to me at the moment, and I wanted to have something on him so he would get increased speed. Having Lyn on a covert unit, very nice. You know, you get increased range with Astra Storm, all that type of stuff. And he does appreciate the stats and increase to dex, speed, res, all good stuff. But really what I've been trying to do is I've been trying to build him into a frontline, like range 1 crit knife build. Kind of something I've seen people suggest with Zelkov. I haven't tried that myself with Zelkov. But because I figured it'd be nice to do something a little bit different than my Yunaka build that I've used in the past. And it's working. It's really working. It's really nice being able to push up. Alfred's not so dodgy that he's got, you know, 0 hit against him from enemies, so enemies will still attack him. But I can put him in terrain, or I can just put him in a choke point with his stiletto. He has increased crit, and we can wait. And with Self-Improver, he gets that +2 strength, which when you're using knives, every little bit of extra strength helps. Then he stands there, and he's not killing things often unless he gets a big crit. But he's not going down either, and he's weakening things pretty consistently. He can drop mages and archers with his steel dagger +3 without too much problem. He can stand toe-to-toe with melee fighters and hasn't really gone down on me. Like, there might be something here, man. And it's interesting because, you know, Alfred has generally not great build. It's kind of part of his characterization is that he wants to get big and swole, and he's not. He's a noodle boy. So knives work really well with that because they're so light. So I don't know, man, it's weird. It is very strange. I don't have that much that I can say about it at the moment beyond it's kind of working. This is definitely one that I'm going to have to come back to. I wish I had more insight into what I might want to do with it than I do right now, but I really just wanted to touch on it because it's such an out there concept to me, and yet, there is something here. So, Thief Alfred, man. Drugon, thank you for the suggestion. We're definitely going to see how this one plays out because I'm intrigued. It's been a lot of fun thus far. Finally, moving on to Celine. This one is interesting. This is another creation of my mind, and with collaboration from my community, people in my Discord, who helped me theorize and come up with some stuff, and the idea was proposed by the community a little bit. This one is interesting. Celine is one of those characters that I like the concept of because I really like mixed physical and magical attackers, spell swords, things like that, in all forms of media where such an idea is supported. And while Celine's design is one of the ones that bothers me the most in the game from a visual standpoint, I like the concept of this princess running around with sword and spell. I find her personal skill actually more useful than I think people give her credit for. And so I wanted to come up with something that could work well for her. And that is, that's where we had the idea. This is what I wound up calling Backup Bolting Baroness Celine, Wielder of the Petal Storm, Butcher of Bandits, Electrifying Enchantress, Ferocious Pyrenees, Flower Fanatic. Her signature bolting T leaves even Linden weak in the knees. What does that mean? This is a Celine Sorin build. And it is a weird one, and I truly believe that it's going to be an MVP in my team. The idea here is that Celine, as a hero, will be able to still make use of her swords that she nominally wants to use. Will get Brave Assist, as heroes do. If unit's HP is at max while unit makes a chain attack, unit attacks twice. And when Celine is engaged with Sorin, she will have access to bolting. A long-range Thunder Magic Tome, wielded by Emblem Sorin, cannot follow up. It has a range of 310. Backup units make a chain attack in the combat of an ally fighting a foe in range. With a movement range of 5 as a promoted unit, and bolting having 10 range, you have a 15 square radius-ish where Celine is going to be able to Brave Assist with bolting for anyone fighting in that area while she is engaged. And if you're familiar with my Brave King Boucheron backup build, you understand why that appeals to me so much. So what's going on here? Basically, the reason we're in Hero is for Brave Assist, and as soon as I was able to get Soren via the DLC, I slapped him on Celine and pushed our bond to 20. Now we have Bolting, Reflect, and Excalibur. I've not used Reflect and Excalibur at all because, frankly, Celine's magic is pretty bad right now as a hero. But that's the magic. Backup attacks don't actually care about your stats. Backup attacks only care about the enemy's max HP and taking a percentage of it per attack. When we engage, we then have 4 turns, due to being maxed out with our bond rank, where we will be able to attack within 15 spaces twice, as long as Celine's at max HP, which, I mean, the way I play her, just sitting in the back basically as a sniper, she's pretty much always at max HP, unless she got an annoying level. And if you extrapolate that out, I haven't done the math yet. I'm going to when I actually wind up doing a full build video on this, because I am. But you think about, if you have a map where you've got, say, 10 to 12 allies, Celine's one of those, so you've got like 9 to 11 people that can be attacking in her range. That's, what would that be, like 18 to 22 backup attacks that she could potentially do for percent health off enemies for 4 straight turns. Awesome. But you might say to yourself, okay, well, she's going to run out of engage eventually, and then isn't she kind of useless? Well, not really. That's where favorite food comes in. I inherited this off of Celica. When unit eats a packed meal, its engage meter is maxed out. So you have 4 turns of absolute chaos where Celine is just launching thunderbolts all over the place like she's Zeus himself. She sits down, has herself a little snack, charges back up, does it for 4 more turns. Then, I mean, there's engage puddles all over the place. There's other ways to get your engage meter up. You can use things like elixirs with enchanters, or just, you can actually have her fight, because she can actually fight. You can potentially get like 3 to 4 engages per map with this, and that should largely be enough to get you through to the end of the map, and you're just throwing lightning everywhere the whole time. Then, of course, we will have dual assist, because I do want to be able to get even more range out of this bolting shenanigans. And then we get to the rest of Soren's abilities, which I'm not going to lie, haven't been the most useful yet, because, again, Celine's stats aren't the best for actually attacking with magic when she's a hero. But that's because we don't really need her to be. Like, I don't want Celine fighting on the front line. I want her to be behind our lines with bolting equipped, so she can just be backup attacking everywhere. Now that we've gone through the way the build works, let's talk about the stats really quick, because the stats are a little bit of an issue, but again, with the way this build works, stats aren't super important. So as a hero, Celine has 65 HP, 50 strength, 25 magic, 40 dex, 60 speed, 30 defense, 50 res, 65 luck, and 5 builds. So it's kind of like a, you have the potential for physical damage output here, and I do think she'll be able to hold her own a little bit with a sword on the battlefield. She has been able to thus far. But you'd be extremely glass cannony. Our build isn't going to be great, so we're going to make sure that we're trying to use lighter swords when we can, when we're fighting on the front line, which isn't going to be that often, but it will happen. The issue is we have very low defense, so if our pretty good speed and luck don't allow us to dodge, Celine's going to fold pretty fast. She doesn't have a ton of HP. She's fragile. She's fragile. And the other issue is she's only got 25 magic growth. She gets 0 from hero. She just has her base 25 from being Celine. So you're not going to be seeing much magic growth here. You could use things like tonics or spirit dusts, of course, to boost your base magic and deal more damage. But if you want to be able to attack and to deal good damage with Celine's actual attack with magic, it's going to be something that you're hard-pressed to pull off here. That said, again, that's not the point. The way you're using this build, Celine is sitting in the back, cackling like the mad, bloody baroness that she is, dreaming of all the bandits that she's boltinging, boltinering, I don't know, that she's hitting with lightning magic from across the map, and she just sits there, and she just does it, commanding from her ivory tower. And it's just such a weird way to play. But the damage that she's going to rack up over the course of a run, and the damage that she's going to add to your attacks with your other characters over the course of the run, which I know how this works because I used 2 big backup builds in my previous Maddening run with Boucheron and Plague Dr. Jean, will be really good. And then you factor in things like Assigned Decoy, and she can, like, make it so that an ally will take some hits, that she can designate, like, hey, you stand before me, peasant, and shield me from the incoming damage. And then having things like Gentle Flower, recover items used by allies within 2 spaces, heal plus 50% HP, I think is kind of a slept-on skill. Because having the ability to heal with vulneraries or elixirs if your staff users are caught up doing other things, or if you just have a lot of damage that you got to deal with and you don't want to use Fortify, maybe you don't have Fortify, being able to get more bang for your buck with healing is really good, especially on Maddening where money is pretty limited, and money is hard to come by in Engage. So being able to heal for more using essentially less funds because of this skill, when we're already going to be in the back line, probably with a bunch of allies around us, just saying, man, I think there's something here. So I know this is an absolutely weird build, but it's one of those absolutely weird builds that I think is going to crush, and I don't think people are going to expect to be as strong as it is. So I'm very excited to see how far I can push it, and it's going to scale well. It's going to scale well into the late game because all it cares about is enemies' max HP, and enemies' max HP is always going up. So as long as I can keep Celine out of danger, which is really not the hardest thing to do, and as long as her stat growth is sufficient enough that when she needs to stand and hold the line with her sword, she can, I think she's going to be just fine. So I know I've been rambling on for quite a while with this one. I'm probably going to trim this down a fair bit because I want to make sure that this information is provided to you in a semi-efficient manner. But this has been 3 more weird builds that I'm using in Fire Emblem Engage, and I think they're going to be a whole lot of fun. They already have been a whole lot of fun, and I can't wait to see how far I can take them from here. So let me know what you think. If you have suggestions on how to make any of these 3 builds hum, if you have other weird builds that you would like to suggest for me, cool, let me know. Drop them in the comments. I've got a bunch of other strange stuff planned for this run as well, so I'll be sure to share with you when I've got anything concrete to show. But for now, thank you all so much for watching. I do very much appreciate it. My name has been Tom, otherwise known as Titanium Legman. Before you go, if you could, leave a like on the video. That would be great. Hope you all have a good night. Stay safe and healthy out there. And remember, be good to each other. Bye now.